Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got a combo that one of you guys requested for us to test out here recently, and I definitely think it has the potential to throw some pretty interesting results downrange. It might work out okay, or we might also run into a little bit of shell limitations as well, considering that we've tested these style of shells plenty of times and we usually know about what they're capable of doing, but who knows, we have not tried this combination and it may very well surprise us because these chokes have thrown some very nice patterns. But first up, for the shells we're running, I brought out some of the Remington Nitro Turkey loads, these ones being the 12 gauge 3-inch 1 7/8 ounce payload of 5s at about 12-10 feet per second. Like I just said, we've tested our fair share of Nitro Turkeys. They're always good enough, but never near the top of the best stuff on the shelf either. Pretty much everything from Winchester will outshoot them, but occasionally you can find a good choke combo that really does well with these. So we'll see if that's today's combination, since we're kind of sharing one brand theme between the shells, the gun, and the chokes. For the shotgun that we're running, I brought out my Remington 870 Special Purpose. I've got a 26-inch barrel on this gun, but we've got two chokes that we're going to put head-to-head with these Nitro Turkey 5s and see which one might perform better or if they're both pretty similar. Those being these two chokes. Both of these are Remington factory turkey chokes, one of them being the Remington Turkey Super Full and the other being the Remington Turkey Super Full straight rifle choke. The regular Super Full is just a smooth constriction inside, no steps, no anything like that. The straight rifled does indeed have some straight rifling down in there. You might be able to see it if I hold it up there in the right lighting, or else I'll pop a picture up over here on what this choke looks like on the inside. So a little bit different styles. I know the regular Super Full was a pretty common turkey choke offering that you would get in a brand new shotgun that you would buy off the shelf as like a turkey edition or something. I don't know if the straight rifled ever came brand spanking new in a gun, but you could buy both of these off of a store shelf from a Remington package. But one of you guys wanted to see the Nitro Turkey 5s through this particular stock Remington turkey choke, and I figured we'll compare these since they're both a 665 constriction. They're just a little bit different lengths, and we've got straight rifled and straight up smooth constriction. So we'll see how they do. As for today's test, we're running everything the same as usual. The turkey targets are set up at 40 yards and we've got the chrono to get our velocity. So we'll start by taking a shot through the regular Turkey Super Full, and then we will take a second shot through the straight rifled version, and we'll see how they compare head to head. So let's start taking some shots and seeing what we get, and if an all Remington combination like this actually works out halfway decently or not. Alright, so let's take a look at our velocities real quick. We have a boss claim of 1210. However, both of our shots were around the 1300 mark, which is not at all uncommon for these loads. The first shot through the regular Super Full being 1324, and the second shot through the straight rifle choke gave us 1274. So we're averaging right about the 1300 mark. Like I said, not entirely uncommon for these for a 26 to 28 inch barrel range. So looking fine here for a lead 5, but let's go check out our patterns and see what the difference actually is. Alright, so here we are down at both of our 40-yard targets. On the left, we have our regular Super Full. On the right, we have our straight rifled Super Full. Remember, both of these are factory Remington chokes that are both also a 665 constriction, and we see some pretty comparable results between them. However, there are a couple very small differences within the pattern. I think what we're going to find is the pattern on the left from the regular Super Full is a little more even throughout most of the spread, and the pattern on the right through the straight rifle choke might have a few more pellets in the core, but it's also got a couple more little hotter zones with some splotchy areas mixed in there as well. Overall size wise, both of them are very similar, but just a few minor characteristic differences between the two of them. However, both of them would certainly take turkeys at 40 yards, but also both of them look like a Remington load, which is perfectly adequate, but nothing over the top special to write home about either. First, we'll start on the left. This is our regular super full choke. We absolutely do have a dead bird. There are multiple of them through the neck area right there below his head, and clearly nowhere he can go to and get through that pattern whatsoever. We might have a little hot zone kind of right in front of the edge of his neck, so it might have tried to throw a little bit of a core area, but it doesn't last for very long because we spread out pretty quick after that. There is a little thin spot towards the top right of that turkey target that I'm noticing as well, although the rest of the pattern is moderately even across the board. Really, as far as flyers go, might be a little bit of stringy stuff up there at the top and the top right, but everything else is pretty uniform circular for the most part. Like we said a second ago, perfectly adequate turkey pattern. It's not the best we've seen by a long shot. Pretty much anything Winchester makes would certainly outdo that combination, but it's not terrible either. It would definitely do the job. If you like a little more leeway in your pattern, nothing at all wrong with that, especially since a lot of turkeys are shot at 20, 25, maybe 30 yards. Nothing wrong with having a pattern like that that can do the job out to 40 yards if needed, but may afford a little more wiggle room at 25. So perfectly solid turkey pattern, but not an absolute screamer either. But now moving over to the right, this is now our straight rifle choke. Same exact 665 constriction and a pretty similar pattern overall, but this is a little bit more splotchy throughout it than what we saw with the regular. Obviously, we've got a handful more of them right through the top of the head area there. Absolutely a dead bird, no question about it. We also have another little hot spot right above the logo there on the brown paper. So 2 hotter zones right there above and below each other. And pretty quickly outside of that, you can see we pick up a little thin area off the top left of the target, a little thin area up above where I wrote some of those words. And if we just move around the pattern, that trend kind of continues. You'll have a little hotter zone off the right edge there with some thinner spots as well. Across the center of his neck, you got 2 thinner zones left and right of his neck, and it's just not a perfectly even spread. Again, perfectly adequate turkey pattern, no question about it. It would certainly do the job out to 40 yards. And it may even have a few more in the direct core area, but it's not quite as pretty and uniform throughout the entire thing. Typically, the purpose of having straight rifling is to prevent the actual shot cut from spinning as it leaves the end of the barrel, hopefully preventing flyers and stuff. And we may have a few little straggly bits off the bottom there, but overall, I don't think it did anything drastically different around the edges for what we saw with the regular Super Full either. So flyers, not really a major thing as far as these 2 shots go. Either way, both of them are perfectly adequate. However, I do think the regular Super Full on the left is probably the little bit better pattern overall. But now we've got our targets out of our way and we can see exactly what's going on here between the 2. And it's about what I thought we were looking at earlier. If we move over to the left with our regular super full choke first, we have a 10 and 20 inch circle drawn here. Within the 10 inch core, we have 69 pellets. And within the 20 inch, we have 119 more of them. And it's a decently even spread as well. Little thin spot at the bottom of that core area and a little thin spot at the bottom right of the 20 inch there. But overall, I think this is the little bit more even spread throughout the entire thing. Usually with a good performing lead number 5 or 6 load, I like to see 100 in the core and 150 in the 20. So we are a little below that, but this is still perfectly adequate performance, I would say. But moving that over to our straight rifle choke now, almost exactly the same as far as numbers go. They're not very far off from each other. Within the 10 inch core, we have 66 pellets compared to 69 with the regular super full. So we lost 3 pellets in the core, but around the edge with our 20 inch circle, we have 127 in there compared to 119 with the other choke. So we gained 8 of them back within there. So it evens out to be only a couple pellets difference overall. But we can also see that this isn't quite as pretty. The top half of our 10 inch is definitely hotter than the bottom. We have a hot spot up top left of the 20, and then a little thin patch, and another little hotter spot, and then another thin patch. And that trend kind of continues, and the edges might have a few more little stragglers a little bit farther out than what we saw with the regular choke. So still mathematically very much equivalent, I would say. A couple pellets are not going to matter, but it's just not quite as uniform of a spread. So overall, neither of these are bad patterns. Neither of these are great, awesome, amazing patterns either, but both of them are perfectly adequate to do the job out to 40 yards. Although I think the little bit less fancy of a choke in the regular super full on the left helped us out a little bit, or at least evened out the spread a little bit more. That would probably be my choice between these two chokes, although either one would work and they're very interchangeable as far as the numbers go. And here are your two wads out of those shells. The regular choke on the left, the straight rifle choke on the right. Really no difference between them whatsoever. Very typical Remington stuff. They both performed about as close as what you could ask as well. Just the straight rifle gave us a little bit more splotchiness throughout the pattern, although it didn't really seem to make any kind of difference as far as the wad goes, or the performance of the wad anyway. Alright, well, what do we think about these results right here? Overall, I think it's pretty reasonable for what I thought we would see coming into it. I figured these were probably going to be very similar patterns, and that's about the numbers I expected to see within our circles as well. Very much just average. They're not anything super amazing to write home about, but they're definitely not terrible either. You could take that out turkey hunting and get the job done just as well as anything else. Keep your shots at 40 and in, you're going to be just fine. And it may provide you a little more breathing room at 20, 25 yards and stuff as well, compared to something like a Winchester Longbeard XR. Although if you're looking for tighter spreads or shells that are going to give you hotter core areas and stuff, the Nitro Turkeys typically aren't really that option. Although we have definitely seen way worse spreads than what we got here. So an all Remington combination seems to be a decently solid performer. I mean, it would make sense that Remington designed a shell to be shot through their gun and their chokes, ideally. So I mean, it makes sense in the grand scheme of things. And we see two perfectly fine results. And it's just going to come down to personal preference as to which one you would prefer. They're both going to serve the same purpose, but do you mind having a few little splotchy areas, or do you prefer the little more even spread? But you'll have to let me know your thoughts down below. Is this about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of the Nitro Turkeys through either one of these chokes out of your gun? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Are either one of these a combo you would hunt with? And if so, which one of these would you prefer? Do you mind having a couple little splotchy areas if you have the potential to have a few little hotter spots in the core? Or do you prefer just a little bit more better all around, more even spread? And what other combos like this do you want to see us run? Other shells through these two chokes, or putting these shells through another different choke set, or whatever the case would be? Let me know your thoughts about it down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.